Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the dark, absolutely fascinating world of arsenic. Now, this is a chemical element that has shaped royal histories, inspired famous murder mysteries, and tragically continues to silently threaten millions of people all over the world today. I'm so glad you're here because understanding how this element actually works is going to completely change how you look at both history and our modern environment. To kick things off, get this. What in the world do a Victorian beauty routine and a royal assassination have in common? Well, believe it or not, women in the 19th century actually ate arsenic complexion wafers. Yes, literally ingested them on purpose, just to remove blemishes and whiten their skin. Meanwhile, that exact same toxic substance was used to murder the Guangzhou emperor in China in 1908. It's wild to think about, right? An element coveted for vanity on one hand and completely weaponized for power on the other. If we trace its evolution across human civilization, we start way back around 3000 BC, where it was mined and added to copper to make Bronze Age alloys. But as we move into the Middle Ages and Renaissance, it gains a much more sinister reputation. Because its lethal symptoms perfectly mimicked cholera, which was super common back then, it basically became the undetectable murder weapon of choice. By the 19th century, it had even earned the incredibly dark nickname inheritance powder because it was the go-to tool for impatient heirs looking to speed up their payouts. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the cellular saboteur, hidden in plain sight, the Bangladesh groundwater crisis, and final, detection and treatment. Let's get into it. Part 1. The cellular saboteur. Let's look at exactly how arsenic attacks human biology. Think of arsenic as this master microscopic saboteur breaking down your biology from the inside out. It basically throws a giant wrench straight into your cell's energy factory. First, it completely tricks your body by mimicking phosphate, which lets it easily sneak right into our cells. Next, it inhibits a crucial enzyme called the pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. By step 3, it uncouples oxidative phosphorylation. Now, if that sounds like a mouthful, basically it completely cuts off the cell's power supply. And without energy, well, step 4 is inevitable, it triggers cell death. It's just an incredibly efficient molecular hijacking. Now, the physical toll of all this, it is night and day depending on how you're exposed. On the one hand, an acute, high-dose poisoning is brutal and fast. It looks like severe food poisoning, vomiting, watery diarrhea that rapidly leads to severe dehydration and shock. But then consider the really insidious one, long-term chronic exposure. Over time, those lower doses actually alter your skin pigmentation, they thicken the skin on your palms and soles, they create these weird white bands across your fingernails called Mies lines, and eventually they significantly spike your risk for squamous cell carcinoma and other cancers. Moving to part 2, hidden in plain sight, modern vectors of arsenic exposure. Here is the crucial point. Arsenic isn't just some dusty historical footnote or vintage assassin's tool. It is a pervasive pollutant hiding right now in our modern environment. You can get exposed through totally normal everyday things. Contaminated groundwater is a huge one, or everyday foods like rice, which is uniquely susceptible to soaking up arsenic right from the soil. Seafood is another common source, though that's usually organic arsenic, which is generally way less toxic. We also see exposure from old agricultural pesticides, wood preservatives, and even byproducts from industrial copper smelting. 10 parts per billion. That microscopic number is the strict maximum limit the World Health Organization and the US EPA recommend for arsenic in drinking water. To put that into perspective for you, 1 part per billion is literally like dropping a single drop of water into an entire Olympic-sized swimming pool. That shows you just how incredibly tiny an amount it takes to be dangerous to our health over time. Which brings us to part 3, the Bangladesh groundwater crisis, a true public health disaster. Globally, we are looking at over 200 million people exposed to unsafe levels of arsenic in their drinking water. It's a staggering figure. But the absolute epicenter of this massive tragedy, that's located in Bangladesh. In fact, the scale of contamination there is so bad that the WHO has called it the largest mass poisoning of a population in human history. We really need to ground these numbers in humanity. In Bangladesh alone, 70 million people are at risk. And the irony here is just absolutely heartbreaking. Decades ago, millions of shallow tube wells were built to save people from dying of waterborne diseases like diarrhea. And it worked. They beat the surface water diseases. But they accidentally tapped straight into natural, toxic, arsenic-rich sediments underground. Tragically, kids under 15 make up 45% of this population. Many of them have basically been drinking poison water every single day since the day they were born. This absolutely demands a solution, leading us to our final section, detection and treatment, isotope hydrology and chelation. So how do we fix this? Well, the International Atomic Energy Agency is deploying this fascinating technique called isotope hydrology. Essentially, scientists are mapping the water by measuring its oxygen and hydrogen fingerprints, along with its carbon-14 activity. Because water picks up a very specific signature as it evaporates, rains down, and flows deep underground, researchers can use these tools to figure out the exact age, origin, and most importantly, the safety of underground aquifers. By mapping these isotopic signatures, scientists were actually able to group the groundwater into 4 distinct types. They rapidly figured out that Type 1 and Type 2 waters, the shallow, modern waters replenished by recent rain, are highly toxic and full of arsenic. But look at Type 3 and Type 4. The deeper waters, resting roughly 150 to 300 meters down, are thousands to 20,000 years old. These ancient waters have been safely isolated from the toxic sediments above and are completely arsenic-free. It's essentially a geological roadmap for sinking safe wells. But what do we do for the people who are already sick? For those suffering from acute poisoning, doctors use something called chelation therapy. They administer agents like Saximmer, which literally act like a chemical claw. They bind to the arsenic, pulling it away from your blood protein so your body can safely pee it out. It is a vital, life-saving intervention. But as we've learned today, just treating the symptoms isn't enough. Finding clean, sustainable water using brilliant tools like isotope hydrology is the only true preventative cure. I'm going to leave you with this one final provocative thought. As we've uncovered how millions of people can unknowingly drink toxic water for decades, it really forces us to look a little closer to home, doesn't it? How secure is your own local environmental infrastructure against nature's hidden poisons? Whether it's old agricultural runoff, legacy pesticides, or just natural sediments, our environment is intimately tied to our biology. I hope this explainer sparked your curiosity to look a little deeper into what's flowing from your own tap. Keep questioning, keep learning, and thank you so much for joining me today.